The Baltimore Ravens spent a first-round pick on Zay Flowers in the 2023 NFL Draft, and so far he's proven a little bit in training camp. We'll talk about what we've seen from Flowers, also the latest injury news and updates on the Ravens, as well as what happened at practice on Tuesday. All that and much more come up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We're your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, and I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here as always on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here with us, making us your first listen each and every day here on this Wednesday, a midweek edition. We're free and available all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I'm excited for this episode today. We have Cordell Woodland of 105.7 The Fan, the Winning Drive podcast, on the ground at Under Armour Performance Center, talking all things Ravens. Cordell obviously does great work covering the team and the Orioles too. We cannot forget about those Orioles, Cordell. It's the trade deadline. We're recording this for those who are listening right before the 6 p.m. trade deadline. So we don't know if the Orioles are going to make a move, but how you doing, Cordell?
What's up, Kevin, man? Appreciate you giving me an invite as always.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for you to be here, especially with the excitement surrounding the Ravens this offseason as we kind of head into the 2023 season. And we know it's all kind of centered around the offense. Not that the defense isn't going to be good, but the offense right now with Todd Monken coming in, replacing Greg Roman, the Ravens signing Odell Beckham, drafting Zay Flowers, Lamar Jackson coming back. There's a lot of hope for what this offense can be this season, but I wanted to talk to you about Zay Flowers today in this first segment because, I mean, look, it seems like he's taken this entire team by storm, the NFL world by storm. Is there a third receiver taken in the 2023 draft? Jackson Smith-Njigba and also Quentin Johnson taken ahead of him. But to me, Cordell, at least from what I can gather, he looks smooth in his routes. He's dominating everybody. What have you seen out there on the field from Zay Flowers so far?
Yeah, a lot of electrifying plays from Zay Flowers. I mean, he is a quick, jittery guy who can run some crisp routes, and he puts a lot of stress on a DB, especially in man coverage. Today was the first day that they got to do one-on-one, so we got to see him in space matched up against the corner one-on-one. It's unfair. It's honestly unfair. The first rep I saw from him was against Rock Ya-Sin on a deep ball. He beats him down the field, tracks the ball really well, makes that play. He also had another really good play later on against one of the other DBs where he hits him with a double move and the DB ends up going down. It was pretty bad, and Zay finishes the play off with the catch. He's just such an electrifying guy. And I said this after we saw the practice at M&T Bank Stadium on Saturday. Zay didn't practice out there. Obviously, he was dealing with an illness at the time. But I had said that you miss Zay Flowers when he's not there. You can tell when he's not on the field. It's just you miss that guy that's kind of moving around like a go-kart. And it's like it's noticeable when he's not out there. So I do, he's gotten a lot of hype this offseason, and understandably so. He's a first-round pick. The Ravens have done a lot to revamp this wide receiver room, and he's been a part of that process. So I get it. But I got to say, I've definitely been impressed by everything I've seen from Zay Flowers so far. I mean, he can run the entire route tree. He had a really good day in the red zone today. He's catching multiple touchdowns in the red zone, beating double teams. He's so quick out of his breaks, and he's very deceptive in his route running. He's very good at the tail end of the route. You may be with him once he breaks his cut, but he's so good at kind of finding ways to adjust to the ball, finding ways to get that extra depth at the last second to get that separation from the receiver. And you can tell he and Lamar have a little bit of a chemistry already.
I think, he's a 3-level receiver, short game, intermediate, deep as well. But what I feel about him, Cordell, is that when you watch him run routes, at least when I watch him run routes, he doesn't stop. He glides through his cuts and his breaks. And when, receivers have to, they break it down to come back to the line of scrimmage, or they do an out or go in, do a slant. guys break it down. They maybe have a little stop and then they go. Zay Flowers just goes. There's no his cutting ability is insane. It's incredible to me. But there have been conversations about, well, okay, pump the brakes. Zay Flowers hasn't, there's not been a snap yet that he's played at the NFL level. This is all just training camp practice. But to me, he's done everything that, he can to at least prove that he is the real deal. Do you feel like even though there's not a snap been played yet for him, he's proving that he's the real deal?
I think he's proven that he can be. It's definitely still early, and I can buy into the snap because I've fallen victim of it. I've seen guys in training camp light it up, and then as soon as they get out there and the lights are on, it's a different animal. Now, I will say I don't expect that from Zay. I expect Zay to be a big-time contributor in this offense. I do, and I think they do as well. And no matter who you talk to about Zay Flowers, whether it's somebody that covers the team, somebody that's on the team, they're probably going to have good things to say about him to this point. And that's a credit to him. Like, it's okay to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and say, we don't know if he's going to be the best wide receiver on the team. He could be, but we don't know. But in the same breath, I think it's safe to say that this guy is he's a really good wide receiver. I mean, he gives you everything you're looking for. And you talk about a guy that has his stature. Everybody likes to compare him to Hollywood Brown, but their games are so totally different. Zay, I would say, is a more explosive route runner. I think Zay is more scary in the open field. I think he is more of a true football player. He's looking for the contact. He's looking for the big play. He's hunting the big play, whether it's on a deep ball or whether it's him catching it on a short to intermediate route and trying to make something happen after the catch. I just think Zay is a hungry guy right now, and watching him every day, you get to see that.
Yeah, I'm with you where, look, is Zay Flowers going to be Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp in year one based off of a couple of training camp practices? We cannot go that far. We cannot say that. But what I do think is that, as you said, he's a good football player and someone who I think is going to make an impact. And part of that, Cordell, is the fact that I just feel so much better about the Ravens wide receiver group this year as a whole than I did with them going into last year. The proven depth all across the board. So with Rashad Bateman, and we'll get to him throughout the course of the show, but if Zay Flowers has to step in for a couple missed games, if Odell Beckham has to miss a few, or if Bateman has to rest for a couple weeks, I personally feel a lot more comfortable with Zay Flowers stepping up into a role than a DeMarcus Robinson or one of those types of players.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's a totally different situation. I mean, I'm watching these guys out there. You're looking at a situation where guys like James Prochet and Tylan Wallace, it's kind of been a given that they're going to make the team. This year, you don't know. You don't know how many wide receivers are they going to keep. I mean, even if they keep 6, one of them is going to be the odd man out. And it's just a matter of who. But you do feel good about the fact that, okay, let's say one of the starters goes down. Then you slide in a Nelson Aguilar. You slide in a Devin Duvernay. And Nelson Aguilar had himself a really good day today as well. I got to say, he looks like a guy that he and Lamar have a really good connection early. That's been one of the surprise things of camp, at least for me, how quickly they have gotten on the same page. Since Nelson Aguilar has been here. And I get everybody has the drop concerns with Aguilar. They're legit. He's not immune to a drop here or there. But today, he had a really good day. And honestly, for the most part, since he's been here, he's been more good than not during the practices. So you do feel good about the wide receiver room right now for the first time in a while. Definitely the first time in the Lamar Jackson era. This is probably the best you felt about this group. And they do have bodies to jump in there in case somebody gets hurt. Now, obviously, it's going to be a step back if a guy like Bateman isn't out there, if a guy like Beckham or Flowers aren't out there, especially those two, since they've been out there. They've been able to actually be up to speed in the offense. We've seen their connection with Lamar throughout camp. But, last year, Duvernay was a starter. Last year, Prochet was a fringe starter. You know what I'm saying? This year, those guys are kind of waiting in the wings to see what happens with the guys in front of them. That'll be kind of the way that they get consistent reps. Duvernay, I'm intrigued by because I still can't put my finger on how they plan to use Duvernay just yet. It's been times where Duvernay is out there And I'm seeing plays that would normally go to Duvernay go to somebody else, even when he's on the field. So it's definitely been something to watch. I can't put my finger on how they feel about him right now or what his role would be, but that's something I'm going to definitely pay attention to leading up to the season.
Yeah, I think if they keep 1 through 6, I feel like there's just a talent increase. And that's not no disrespect to any of the guys who played on the team last year, but I just think you have better depth there. But it is what it is. So I feel like with Zay Flowers, there's a lot of expectations. But were your expectations coming into training camp with him, Cordell? Have they changed at all with these first couple of days of training camp?
Not necessarily. I look at him. I've always felt like, look, he's going to be the pecking order. You still got to get past 2 to 3 names, I think, before you get to Zay Flowers. I'm still looking at Mark Andrews as the guy. I'm still probably looking whether you have Beckham or Bateman ahead, one or both of those guys ahead of Zay Flowers, and I think either of those options are reasonable. I don't think a lot of the pressure will be put on Zay Flowers' plate. Now, I do think he's going to be one of the main contributors in the passing game. But again, the fact that they do have all these veterans ahead of him on this team right now, it does relieve him of the pressure of having to come in and try to be wide receiver 1 in his rookie year, to try to lead the team in receiving or something like that. I think Zay Flowers is in a perfect spot because the upside is, hey, maybe he could turn out to be the leading receiver on this team by the time we're looking at it at the end of the season. But that isn't put on him today because of the guys he has around him. It's kind of a bonus. So it allows him to kind of go out there and be himself, play free, play loose, play fast. And that's what he's done to this point. So that's kind of been my expectation for him. And even seeing him to this point and how good he's been in camp, I'm still looking at it that way going to the regular season. Just go out there, make the plays that they are when they're open for you to make them. But I'm not looking at it like, oh yeah, Zay Flowers has to be the guy every game. I don't think that's the case for him.
I think that's, to your point, I think that's why it's a perfect situation for him, especially early on, where he's not, tasked with that wide receiver 1 pressure, but he can go out there in a low pressure. Not that he couldn't perform in a high pressure environment, but he can go out there in a low pressure environment and make those plays. I am interested though early on, Cordell, to see what they do with Aguilar versus Flowers. I know Flowers is too good to keep off the field. You can't keep him off. But if they decide to use the veteran early on, because the team does tend to favor veterans in certain spots, do they put Aguilar out there, especially with the camp he's having? But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll be talking about Nelson Aguilar a little bit more training camp takeaways and what Cordell's seen out there on the field. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to talk about on Locked On Ravens. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think's going to be the first home run hitter. If you're betting Orioles, if you don't want to keep in the Baltimore spirit, you can go Adley Rutschman. You can go Gunnar Henderson, Ryan O'Hearn even. He's had a good year for the Birds. That's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. We are back. Our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Osheiker still here with Cordell Woodland. And Cordell, I think overall in practice, there have been a lot of positive takeaways. Now, not all of them have been positive. Guys have been struggling out there. But on Tuesday, we talked about Zay Flowers a lot. Outside of Zay, what did you see out there from the offense and the defense?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really sharp day for Lamar Jackson. I thought Lamar threw the ball really well today. I thought he threw the ball really well yesterday as well. He just seems to be getting in the rhythm. I think this offense is getting in the rhythm. I thought yesterday's practice was the best day the offense has had in camp, and I thought they built off that today. You got some touchdowns, like we mentioned, to Zay Flowers earlier, not only in red zone and one-on-ones, but he made some plays in the team drills. Also, Odell Beckham, just as unguardable as I said Zay Flowers was in one-on-one, Odell Beckham has shown himself to be just as unguardable in those same type of situations. Beckham had a nice opportunity to make probably the play of the day on a deep ball from Lamar Jackson. Might have been a 60, 70-yard pass. And Beckham stacked his DB. He beats him over the top. Lamar puts it right in the basket. And uncharacteristically of Odell Beckham, he drops it. And, he later on, I see him doing his push-ups on the sideline, holding himself accountable. But look, he also had his moments where he did win. He had a nice touchdown on a fade route in a red zone drill where if it's one-on-one and you throw the ball up, I mean, his knack for being able to just go up and get it and attack the ball, it's kind of second to none. You don't even at this level, you're not seeing a lot of wide receivers do it the way that he does it. So that's been good to see. I do think that it just sticking with the offense. I think Dante Demas had a good day today. He's been a guy. Look, it's an uphill battle for him. It's going to be tough for him to make this team. I think best case scenario for Demas is probably practice squad, but I could be wrong. But I'll say this: I don't think that Demas has done anything to hurt his chances to make this team. He's been consistent. He's making the play when it's open for him to make it. When the ball comes his way, he's there. So I was impressed with him today. Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. He's still, you can't stop him. Got to look at a little bit of the offensive line. The rookie Saleh at guard, he had a pretty good day. Had his moments. It's kind of tough to really stay attached to what's going on in the trenches. So many bodies in the way, and depending on what field they're on, we may not have the best angle. But I did get to see a couple of plays of Saleh where he looked strong. I mean, it was a play. It may have been from yesterday's practice where he completely stood David Ojabo up. I mean, he's just a brick wall, and he can move. He's athletic. He's obviously a big guy. He's very strong. You could tell the Ravens like him, and he continues to be in there with the first team. And, I mean, I think it's something to be said for the fact that ever since they have given him a look with the first team, they have not changed it. We haven't really seen anybody else at that spot. So that's a good sign for Saleh. On the defensive side, Marlon had a really good day. Marlon is just so competitive. It's tough to beat him. Even when you got him beat, his ability to recover on a play where he's beaten is really second to none. He never gives up on the play. If the ball's in his vicinity, he's going to try to make a play on the ball. So Marlon had a couple of good reps against Nelson Aguilar today. Aguilar also had a couple of good reps against Marlon as well. Rough day for Rock Ya-Sin. And it hasn't just been today. It's kind of been in camp. And we talked to Coach Hewitt today, the DB coach, and he did say that Rock Ya-Sin is adjusting right now to playing more man coverage, to playing the variety of coverages that the Ravens play compared to, maybe just cover 2 and cover 3 out in Vegas and Indianapolis. So it's been an adjustment for him. And, it's no reps off for him. He's either guarding Odell Beckham or guarding Zay Flowers, and maybe even Nelson Aguilar, who's had himself a good camp to this point. So he's getting picked on quite a bit, and you do wonder what it's going to be like come regular season. I mean, he's going to get a lot of the target share in terms of him and Marlon. They're going to go to him a lot, and I think I just wonder what the plan is going to be over there, because it's not like they have a lot behind him. It's not like they can really just say, okay, he's not having a great day, let's throw somebody else out there. Maybe that guy is Brandon Stevens, but I don't feel overly confident about that. So I think they're going to be in a little bit of a bind at their corner spot, and we kind of all saw that coming. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, look, guys like Patrick Queen and those guys are still flying around. Marcus Williams, I think he's one of the best kept secrets on this defense. We talk a lot about Humphrey and Roquan and Patrick Queen. Marcus Williams, I think, is going to be a stud in this defense. And we didn't get to see a lot of it last year with him dealing with the injury. But if he can stay healthy this year, he'll be really impressive. And one last person, Delshon Phillips, he probably had the best day of the day on the defensive side of the ball. Quite a few pass breakups, had a nice interception in the red zone drill as well. So I like what I saw from Delshon today.
Yeah, well, great notes. I appreciate those, Cordell. But I feel like you read my mind with my next question, because you talked about the corner position and you mentioned Rock Ya-Sin and the struggle it's been for him throughout training camp so far. I wanted to kind of gauge your comfortability level, because we know Marlon Humphrey's Marlon Humphrey. You talked about that. That's why I think, in my opinion, outside of Lamar, he's the most important player on the team. If he goes down, that whole corner room, there's just so much unprovenness in it. So what's your comfortability level with the corner room as a whole right now? Because they're opting, it's kind of a lesser extent of the wide receiver position last year, in my opinion, because Marlon is Marlon. They didn't really have a Marlon in that wide receiver room last year, but they're banking on a couple of young guys to really step up and Rock Ya-Sin to adjust to the defense.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not overly confident just for the reasons you named it. And even with the struggles that Rock Ya-Sin has had, I don't know if they have anything else better than him behind him. I honestly don't. I don't think you can just say, okay, let's throw Jalen Armour Davis over there. Let's throw Brandon Stevens is probably the next likely guy just because he's done it. They have given him a shot over there at the outside spot. But everybody else is just as much of a question mark, even an even bigger question mark to me than Rock Ya-Sin is. So it's kind of like they're stuck between the rock and a hard place. And you look at what's available out there on the open market at the cornerback position, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. Even if whether you're talking about starter, it's definitely nothing there. Or if you're talking about even depth, I mean, how much is that depth guy going to be better than what you already have with some of your young guys? So I mean, it's a concern. It's a legit concern for me with the fact that their cornerback room just does not have a lot of bodies out there. And I'm watching Jalen Armour Davis and these guys out there get their reps when they get their opportunity. And it's kind of like, it's not great. Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. But more times than not, it just looks like they're kind of fighting for their life a little bit. And so I am curious to see how it goes in this cornerback room because I don't think they can afford for any of the top two guys to go down.
Yeah, I mean, essentially with what's out there right now, I mean, they just signed Darth Mullet. Has he done anything in your mind?
He's been out there. He's been out there a little bit. He's kind of still figuring it out. He's still figuring it out. But it's tough. I mean, the Ravens do have a pretty decent wide receiver room right now, and when you couple that with Lamar being as sharp as he's been, and they're not really trying to have but so much contact. They're not really necessarily jumping routes, trying to make plays on the ball. It's more so about being in position. So it's tough to really tell how. I may say they don't look like they're doing that great, but one of the coaches may look at it and say, look, he's in position. He's kind of doing his assignment. He's doing what we're asking him to do. So I think we'll get a better feel of this DB room when they've got the preseason game in about a week against the Eagles. But I think more so when you talk about them as a whole, when they do their inter squad practice with the Commanders in a couple of weeks, I think that's when we'll really start to get a feel of how good some of these guys are when you compare what the Commanders wide receiver room is to what the DBs have, the Ravens DBs right now. I think that'll give us a really good look at how good that group is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if you make a silver lining out of it, is this is not the Ravens receiver room of old. Like you have guys in that room now. And so look, it's a test and it's a good one early on. You want to know what these guys are made of. You don't want to have it happen in week 2 of the regular season where you're like, oh, we didn't realize that, this is happening or that. You can figure it out in training camp, and that's what training camp's for. So I'm never one to like hit the panic button super early in training camp. I think, I want to give the guys a benefit of the doubt to figure it out, but you can still take some stuff away early on for sure. But we'll head into our final break now. Coming up, we'll talk about the latest injury news, the latest roster news for this Ravens team. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to talk about on Locked On Ravens. We're back rounding out Locked On Ravens here on Wednesday. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Cordell Woodland. And Cordell, I know there were a couple of injury notes from practice, both the last couple of days. Geno Stone leaves Monday with an ankle injury, and then David Ojabo leaves and then comes back but doesn't finish practice on Tuesday. I know John Harbaugh gave updates on those. What did you kind of see when those injuries happened, and how were Harbaugh's updates in terms of when those guys could be back?
Yeah, Geno Harbs told us yesterday he didn't have a lot of information at the time, but he didn't think it was too serious. It didn't look super serious. It was a red zone drill. It was a run play. Guys are falling over, and I think somebody kind of either landed on or rolled into Geno's lower body. So hopefully he'll be back. Like you said, he wasn't at practice today. Ojabo, I didn't actually see what happened to Ojabo. I noticed him walking off the field with the trainer, but maybe 10 minutes or less, he was back out there. He didn't necessarily jump back into practice, but he seemed in good spirits. He wasn't standing with the trainer. He's back with his guys. So I think they may be okay on that front. They probably just kept him out for precautionary reasons. Totally can understand that. I think that's it. Compared to the rest of the league, the Ravens have been blessed to this point to not have to deal with any major injuries. And look, that's part of the reason why John Harbaugh wanted to have some of these practices in the middle of the afternoon compared to the morning where you're seeing some of these other teams do it. I think if you're asking Harbs, he's looking at it like, yeah, those teams, they're practicing in the morning, maybe late morning at the latest, and you're seeing what's going on with them right now. The Ravens, for the most part, have been able to dodge a big injury bug.
Yeah, well, based off what happened in 2021, I think they deserve some injury luck because that year was just horrendous all the way around. Even last year, they went through their fair share. Not as bad as 20. I don't know if we're ever going to see a year like 2021 again for the Ravens. Hopefully we don't.
Hopefully
but
not.
I know that Odell's been going through a little bit of, ramping up period as he kind of gets back into the swing of things. What have you kind of noticed from how the team and Odell's been managing his situation as he works back?
Yeah, look, I'm starting to feel like maybe when it comes, I don't think they want to see Odell doing too much cutting, too much unnecessary cutting. Like he didn't participate in the one-on-ones. So I think when it's like they know what they have in Odell Beckham when it comes to a one-on-one situation, you're not going to be able to really stick with him. And I think they want to avoid any unnecessary cutting and planting that comes with running those types of routes. One-on-ones get super competitive. And we've seen injuries in the past in one-on-one. So I think they kind of just want to leave him out of that. Even with the team drills, he participates. He's out there with the first team, but he may not always be out there with the first team. And it seems like Odell is kind of in control of his own ramp-up period a little bit. Maybe not totally. I'm sure the Ravens have a say. But, I asked John Harbaugh about it today. I asked him if, what we are seeing Odell do, is this kind of according to his ramp-up period? Is he still in the ramp-up period because we don't see him doing everything that all the other starters are doing all the time? And he said he keeps saying Odell has a great plan for himself, that Odell is, he likes the fact that he's still ramping up and he likes Odell's routine. He likes his plan. So I don't know if Odell came up with this or the Ravens did or whatever, but it seems like whatever's going on with him, they're on the same page. They're not necessarily looking for him to take every rep with the starters. And at the end of the day, when he does get his reps, he's running them well. He's running them, he's going full speed. He's giving it his all. So I think right now, look, they understand Odell Beckham's injury history. They understand now what his importance to this team is this year. So they're going to do everything in their power to keep him as healthy as possible going into week one.
Yeah, it's the smart decision. You don't want to be risking health for training camp. You want to get guys the reps, but you mentioned it. We know what the Ravens are getting in Odell and what type of player he is. But in terms of another interesting situation, not necessarily injury-wise, we thought it was, but we don't really know at this point. The J.K. Dobbins situation, Cordell, has been one that it's taken so many twists and turns ever since he got injured in the 2021 preseason against the Commanders, really in that first drive of the game, where, tore multiple ligaments in the knee, was very open about his injury and worked his way back, had to go back under the knife after a couple of weeks to get some cleanup done, comes back. And, we're kind of thinking, all right, JK, I don't think he looked 100%, but, he was breaking off long runs and was getting back into the groove, but hasn't practiced at this point in training camp. There was the reported hold-in that was happening during mini camp. He obviously tweeted out a couple of things about a month or so ago about how he loves the city of Baltimore. We know the landscape of running backs across the league, Cordell. It's not great. And while I don't think the J.K. Dobbins situation is nearly as messy as what's going on with Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis right now, we don't have Steve Bisciotti going out there on Twitter and tweeting at agents or anything. I wouldn't necessarily call it sunshine and rainbows in Baltimore right now with J.K. Dobbins in the Ravens. So what's kind of your read on this whole situation with Dobbins, and are you starting to get a little concerned about the situation?
Yeah, look, you go from the Lamar contract situation to now you got the J.K. Dobbins situation going on right now, and it's a little different. But the JK situation is a weird one. And whether he's hurt or whether he's staying out due to due to his contract situation, or maybe it's a combination of both. I could see that as well. But it's an odd situation because he doesn't have much leverage right now with the Ravens. Look, they're in the Lamar Jackson contract era, and they're going to be looking to cut corners where they can. Running back is the number one spot that teams around the league are looking to kind of save some coin at. And I don't think the Ravens are going to be any different. I don't know what the end game is for J.K. Dobbins. It's kind of like we could see him at practice any day now. We just don't know when. And He's been out there sometimes. I didn't see him out there today, but I have seen him out there during training camp. Not obviously practicing, not dressed to practice or anything like that. So I don't know what his end game is. I don't know if he has a day in his mind that he's planning to come back. I don't know if it's kind of like, yeah, I want to get as close to the regular season as possible to try to be as healthy as possible for the most important year of my career. And once I'm out there, I'm going full go. But even if he does just show up in the last week or two of training camp, I mean, who's to say that he's just going to walk out there and they're going to put him out there with the ones? I don't know. I'm not saying that they won't. He's still the best running back they have on their team. But, I mean, I watched Todd Monken, and I know he's a very attention to detail guy. And it may be something to say about the fact that he hasn't had an opportunity to coach J.K. Dobbins yet. He's been out there coaching Gus Edwards and Melvin Gordon and Justice Hill and those guys and Keaton Mitchell. He's actually been able to talk to them about what he's saying and what he wants them to change, the little things. And J.K. may have to be in the classroom a little bit or stand to the side a little bit when he first gets out there to kind of get caught up to speed. So I hope, for his sake, maybe he shouldn't wait but so long because if he waits too close to the season, he may be in that same situation that he's been in his career to this point, to where he's probably not getting the type of carries that he's looking for at the time. So it's a bizarre situation right now. I don't know if the ending is him remaining in Baltimore. And look, I don't know if that would have been the case whether he showed up or not. They're in a weird situation with their cap right now, paying Lamar, paying Roquan Smith, paying Mark Andrews, all these big contracts that they have. I don't know if J.K. Dobbins is necessarily a guy that they see in their long-term plans. And to be honest with you, if I'm J.K. Dobbins, I mean, how much do you really want to remain a Raven? Your career to this, we've heard all the things J.K. has said. We've heard about how upset he was that he got hurt in the preseason game against Washington 2 years ago. We've heard him complain about his carries in this run-first offense at the time, and he still is a guy that's struggling for carries. I mean, I don't know how much he loves the training staff. I see his likes on Twitter just like everybody else, where people are tweeting things at the Ravens training staff and he's liking it. Like, how much does he really want to remain with this organization? Maybe they both need a fresh start, because I do believe J.K. Dobbins is a heck of a player. I think if he goes out there, he could have the best year of his career. But at the end of the day, I don't know if the best thing for both sides is for them to remain together for the long term.
Yeah, it's just it's taken so many different turns, like twists and turns. You don't really know where it is right now. It could be the injury. It could be the hold in. I know Melvin Gordon kind of might have hinted that could be a hold in situation. But again, until we hear something like, I just don't know where it is right now. So I feel like it could be something where he doesn't want to go out there, risk injury again if he doesn't feel comfortable on the knee. But again, he's had time to rehab. So I don't know where it is, but we'll see what happens with him. It's Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Melvin Gordon. It's those guys backfield right now. So we'll see what ends up happening.
I mean, and look, they're in the I know they have had talks, the two sides. They have had contract talks. I don't know how productive they've been. I have heard that JK has asked for an amount that's probably unreasonable for what his track record has been to this point, and probably the price range that the Ravens are looking for right now. I am hearing that JK is borderline outpricing himself with them. So I don't know if he's trying to get traded. I don't know what he's trying to do, to be honest with you. It just seems like he's kind of going with the flow, and he's trying to do whatever he feels like can help his situation.
Yeah, obviously it's a business both for the organizations and the players, and obviously I think JK deserves to be paid. I don't think this is a situation where he's done nothing and what's he doing. But again, the way the running back market is right now, I think for a lot like Jonathan Taylor reportedly asking for upwards of $16 million per season. The way that it is, and I'm not saying it's right, the running back market is what it is, but it just is, where I don't know how it's going to get fixed. J.K. Dobbins obviously is standing with his fellow running backs and, trying to figure out how he can make his position better. But it just feels like I do this comparison all the time, Cordell, where when the Ravens signed Mark Ingram, I think he was 30 at the time. And that was right around the age where people said, oh, running backs are too old when he gets to 30. And he kind of got it. That's like the borderline age. But it feels like every year it's gone down. Like, all right, 29 is too old. 28, 20. Now we have like Dalvin Cook still out there. Zeke Elliott still, all these different players. So I don't know. Hopefully the Ravens and Jake can resolve things. He can get back out there. But obviously Jake has to feel good about it, and the Ravens have to feel good about it. But I appreciate you for hopping on, Cordell. That's all I have for you. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, Kevin. As always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Cordell Woodland. You can catch my show, Shaking It Up Sports, on 105.7 The Fan. I'm on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursday nights. And you can also catch my podcast, Win and Drive podcast. I co-host that with the homie Rita Hubbard. We drop those episodes on Mondays and Wednesdays, wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, he does great work, covers the Ravens and the Orioles, Baltimore sports all the way for Cordell. I appreciate you, as always, for hopping on with me. All the links to his work will be in the description below. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll get back here tomorrow. More Ravens content, of course, more training camp takeaways. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.